everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're going to talk about Nightwing by Peter J. Tomasi. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent, and today we are reviewing Nightwing by Peter J. Tomasi. Now, I did an overview of this book when it came out because I was excited about it. This was the last couple of runs of Nightwing that I remember reading and enjoying, and it had some really great art by Rags Morales, Don Kramer, with one issue in here by Doug Mahnke, all superstar artists in their own right. Where Don Kramer went, I don't know. He's a phenomenal artist, and I haven't seen him, I think, since the New 52 launched. If he retired, God bless him. If you got Me Too'd or whatever, or Comics Gated, oh man, I hope you come back someday in a better form. But if you're just doing other stuff, fantastic as well. Anyway, I miss Don Kramer's art. But after reading it, this Nightwing run is a real letdown. Real letdown. There's all sorts of stuff in here, like, this is not something that I would give to anyone to say this is a great Nightwing run, or this is the final run of Nightwing before he became Batman. You've got to read it. Much less, hey, read this. This is a pretty cool Nightwing story. There's so many callbacks to things that were going on at the time of the Batman universe and the DC universe that aren't explained, that there's no text page or, previously in thing in here at all to give you any sort of context clue, or hell, even a reading recommendation for your next read to understand what they're talking about. There's so many things in here that I remember because I've read it all before, but a new reader, or somebody who hasn't read all that stuff, or maybe they don't have a good memory as me, like these kinds of people would have a terrible time reading this book. And that's why I can't recommend this book. This book fails for that first reason. The second reason, and there's only really two, is that the stories aren't that interesting. There's 12 or 13 issues in here. It contains 140 to 153, so call it 14 issues. The first storyline is 7 issues long. It's called Free Fall. You think that's going to get a little bit interesting, but it turns out that is involving the Great Ten and the mother of all, or whatever her name is. Anyway, it's this Chinese character who, she's part of the Great Ten, which was the Chinese superhero at the time, introduced in 52, the weekly series. So if you haven't read all of that, you don't know who the heck this character is, or what her power is, or why she's important. Hell, they aren't only using her for her power, but they don't really reference, like, the Great Ten, or why she's important, or is the Great Ten even going to come looking for her? All that stuff is not even brought up at all, and so it fails there. And then it turns out it's Talia al Ghul using this character to create these like super armies. And why is she doing this? Well, something about her father. Her father just died. When did that happen? The resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, which was right before this storyline. So if you were regularly reading Nightwing at the time, you may have remembered that. But this thing goes from Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul to Batman R.I.P. to Final Crisis and Batman's Dead, and Batman Last Rites to, even Ra's al Ghul shows up at the end and talks about his resurrection. He doesn't look normal. He's got this white face and stuff, which was all fallout from that story. There's so many callbacks to different stories that if you haven't read those things, it makes for a really clumsy and clunky read. Worst of all is they give Nightwing this cool home base in the first 3 issues here in the cloisters in New York City. They give him a new job, and it feels like it's going to be a new status quo. And I don't know if this was the plan all along, or if this was ripped away from Peter Tomasi as he was writing it. But they did not explore his girlfriend, the supporting characters at the museum. Hell, he just shows up one day, says, hey, I'm the new curator of the museum. Oh, by the way, we're going to be closed for a month while we do renovations to make his Nightwing base. And they never go back to the museum after that. There's a spunky character that's giving him lip. They never revisit her again. It's all just kind of like washed away just to give you a reason that Nightwing operates out of New York City, except for the fact that every other issue here, he's going back to Gotham. going back to have adventures with Robin, borrowing the Batwing, borrowing Alfred for surgery. They set up this home base of New York for this short time, and then they never do anything with it. So it's a big letdown there. So this run ultimately feels like it was just a victim of circumstance. And when you collect it in a trade to say this is a showcase of this writer, of this team, it just falls flat on its face because there truly is nothing to showcase here. The second storyline in here, which was a Two-Face story that I thought I remembered pretty well to be pretty good. And then upon rereading it again for maybe the second or third time, I bought it in single issues back in the day. It was not very good at all. It's this weird thing with Two-Face. Harvey Dent asks Nightwing to protect this person, doesn't tell him from whom. Turns out it's Harvey, the left side of the face, asking Nightwing to protect this girl from Two-Face, the right side of the face, and doesn't tell Nightwing that hook, that you have to protect her from me, from the other guy living inside my brain. And that comes out in like the third of the 5-issue run, in the third issue of that storyline, and it just falls flat. And you're like, wait, what? Just really, really feels like that storyline goes on a little bit too long, even though it's got a lot of fantastic art by Don Kramer in it. Just kind of falls flat. And then you have these wrap-up issues here with Faces of Evil, that storyline, Nightwing versus Ra's al Ghul. Then you have the Last Right story with Nightwing, talking about how Bruce Wayne is gone, and they're kind of like setting up the Batcave again. There's references to Batman in Zurr-en-Arrrgh costume, and the multicolored stuff, and all that stuff's just like, there's so many mentions of other things going on in the Batman universe at this time that it makes for a really clunky read all by itself. So I think that's why it suffers. And I think, if you're going to do tie-ins to stuff, I have no problem with tie-ins when they tie into a main event for real. But when you're tying in events from other things here, you're mentioning Wally coming back and Bart and Impulse dying and Barry coming back at different times. There's just so many callbacks to the normal DC universe, which may have made this a great read at the time. Maybe that's why I liked it, because I was reading everything. I was reading all those books. But when you put it in a storyline here and collect it all together, it just falls really, really flat and feels really, really clunky. So writers, I don't know, learn a lesson. Not to say that you shouldn't tie into it, but if you are, maybe explain it a little bit at the time for the future. Or hell, tell your collections editor to put in a blurb every once in a while to remind people that, hey, if you want to know why they're talking about Batman running around in a multicolored costume, go read Batman R.I.P. If you want to know how Bruce Wayne died, go read Final Crisis. To see him come back, read Return of Bruce Wayne, all that sort of stuff. There's not even a teaser for the Battle of the Cowl trade here, which I know is out of print by now. When they printed this one, they're only highlighting the Kyle Higgins stuff from the New 52, which was pretty good. I do remember reading that and enjoying that. But man, I was just so let down because Peter Tomasi is such a great writer. Don't judge my review of this book of his writing. His Green Lantern Corps stuff is phenomenal. His Batman and Robin stuff is phenomenal. Has he done his Superman stuff? Phenomenal. So don't judge Peter J. Tomasi by this book alone. Go read those other things. They're much better stories. They're much better enclosed and don't have all these references to everything going on, or they're much more involved in their own stories as opposed to this thing, which has a storyline here in the first 7 issues, this free fall arc that falls apart, and then a Two-Face storyline that just makes no sense at the end of the day whatsoever, and it's just really disappointing. So, man, what a letdown for such a great trade full of art. Like, there's literally the only 3 artists in here. Doug Mahnke is in 1 issue. Rags Morales does a majority of it. Don Kramer doing the stuff that Rags Morales doesn't do, and you got 1 issue of Doug Mahnke. Phenomenal artist, the best in the business. This is a book that you could look at for days. However, the story is just not there. So, unfortunately, I can't recommend this, and I think I've laid out my reasons why. If you disagree with me, let me know down below. I think there are other Nightwing runs better than this. The Kyle Higgins New 52 stuff I think is more coherent than this. The stuff that was happening before this with Nightwing, drawn by Phil Hester, being a bad guy, getting Rose involved, Deathstroke's daughter. That was interesting. Hell, I even liked the 1 year later stuff a whole lot with Paco Diaz on art. I thought that was really interesting. I know other people disagree with me, but hey, it's at least a complete story, unlike what is in here. So, unfortunately for Nightwing. So, let me know down below in the comments what you guys think of this run, and we will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.